I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, March the 16th, where we've had fed cattle sales direct out of the 5-area feeding region every day this week so far, and I'm sure we'll have them again on Friday here. And just a little trickle here and a little trickle there, and then quite a bit in the middle of the week. Actually didn't have a whole lot to speak of on Monday, but still some reported sales, and they were the highest ones of the week because they were in Iowa there where supplies are tight and some of those regional packers come in to pick up a few. But packers need cattle. They've bought cattle every day of the week, and that's kind of the way that they think they can keep this market from really taking off, because the market ready supplies are extremely tight right now, and they need cattle, and they're making money on the ones that they're harvesting, and they would like to step that up as much as they can without making the market any higher. At the same time, you've got your feedlots and they're trying to hold the market that they have. They could probably build on it, but they want to keep moving these cattle, and they think if they sell cattle every day, it'll keep the cattle from the market from slipping. But it's just kind of a ploy that each of them's using, and we haven't seen hardly any movement in the market for the last month. Actually, you're right in here, that 127, 128, and some 126 too. But we're kind of at the high that we've been here for the last 3 weeks or so. And the way that these feedlots manage this inventory between now and getting into the middle of May will really spell a lot for the entire cattle market, for the way yearlings sell coming off grass, for the way these calves continue to sell as we work into the spring. As big as the numbers are that are coming, these calf feds that went on feed right off the ranch, right off the cow late last year, when those cattle start hitting here end of April into May, as big as those numbers are, the numbers are just as tight right now. There's not a lot of cattle that are ready to go that can start pulling some green cattle, which will help. It will bring some of the weights down, some of your carcass weights will back off a little bit, and in turn your total production will come off a little bit. But what do? Do you pull those cattle ahead as much as you can so that you can make it through the big numbers later on, or do you try to build as much market position as you can right now so that you've got something to work with when they start whittling on it? And you know what I say, build the market as high as you can. Of course, if you're going to give it up $5, $7 a crack when the numbers get big, I guess there's no need in doing that. But you know, right now guys could really hold these packers' feet to the fire and get more money for cattle, and they should be doing that to try over the next 4 to 6 weeks to try to, you know, see if we can't get $6, $8, $10 put on this market, and but still continue to sell aggressively. But we'll see what happens. But it's a big deal between now and the middle of May, how they manage those numbers, the tight numbers now and the bigger numbers at the tail end of that period. But look at the board on Thursday. June live cattle was down 95. The board's been kind of sour all week, and it's been jostling around the last several weeks, but all the time losing a little bit. Your April spot live cattle futures down $1.15 at 121.85, and that's quite a ways off of the high for the week so far, which we've seen some 130 in some spots, but really you could say the practical high is 128.5 in the 5-area feeding region. That's a big gap sitting here in the middle of March on an April spot market. But April feeder cattle down $1.90 on Thursday to end the day at 140.85. March spot feeder cattle down $1.42 at 140.62. Like I said, we sold fat cattle every day of the week. We had that little trickle there on Monday. Then on Tuesday in the 5-area feeding region, they sold 37,300 head, kind of from 126 to mostly 127. In the southern plains, and all 127 in the northern plains. And then on Wednesday come back with 22,300 head, and that was mostly 128 in the northern plains, and they've pretty much sold all the negotiated cattle they're going to sell in the southern plains already. but 204, and then turning 205 the later in the week that we go. And packers are really trying to gather up as much stock as they can. And so you had about 60,000 head sell in the 5-area feeding region through Wednesday, and then Thursday morning starting to sell cattle again. About another 20,000 already had been turned in just for the morning pull on your mandatory price reporting for Thursday. So now you're up to 80,000, and I'm sure we'll have more cattle sell here on Friday. Should have another near or above 100,000 head movement, which is great. And we need to continue to move that many cattle. But all the while, you know, when these guys are this aggressive, you know, step it up and let's get over 130. That's kind of a psychological deal here. If we can get over 130, that sounds like a pretty good fat cattle market. But like I said, late on Thursday, or as you know, Thursday's sales and later in the week, Northern Plains 128, 128 and a half. 204 to mostly 205 late. Southern Plains has already sold most of their cattle, but the weighted average on live steer through Wednesday was 127.78. So that could tell you, that shows it's higher than a week ago's, and more of those 128 cattle. But you look at your box beef cutout values, they've been about steady through this week, but still gaining a little bit of ground. Late this week, they're higher than they were for the average of last week, so that's healthy. You look at choice cutouts, $224.99, that's up 88 cents for Thursday's afternoon trade, and your selects at $216.31, down 70 cents. Your slaughter's been about par this week, 466,000 through Thursday, 1,000 less than last week and 10,000 more than the same week a year ago. Your actual dressed steer weight for the week ending March the 3rd, 883 pounds, which was the same as the previous report. And you know, they say we're digging into some of these greener cattle already, but we haven't seen any signs of that. You know, that actual steer carcass weight's got to start coming down significantly if it shows that we're starting to pull any green cattle or seeing any signs of the harsh winter storms on some of those cattle in the Northern Plains, especially the calf feds. But look at your feeder markets there. Late on Thursday, your real-time index sitting at 140.244. That's down about $1.10 from late last week. So we've lost ground. Your yearlings going right on feed have been lower everywhere across the nation. And the main thing is the feedlots are just full. They're just slam full. And those guys that feed cattle and have feedlots, they turn cattle out too, and they're more concentrated on trying to buy stocker cattle. But OKC West had a big run this week. 13,200 head, and they had a real light calf sale on Tuesday, so most of those were big feeding cattle, and their feeders selling $3 to $6 lower, with some steers weighing over 800 pounds as much as $8 lower. And if you remember, the calf sale wasn't real whippy on Tuesday with a lot of new crop calves in there and in dry conditions coming from there back west. $8 to $10 lower on those calves. Dodge City, Kansas, 4,700 head on Wednesday, $3 to $6 lower. Pratt, Kansas, around 5,200 head. You look at the automated market report on Cattle Market Central, you can see that your popular weights of feeder steers and heifers were $1 to $4 lower. You look at some of those bigger drafts of feeder steers. 511 head of 7-weight steers averaged 743 pounds at 146.13, and that was down from $1 to $2 lower on the weighted average from the previous sale. On the 8-weight steers, 521 of them averaged 847, 133.35, and that was $4 lower on the weighted average than the previous week. You look at some individual quotes, and I tell you, we are so happy to have Ogallala Livestock Market in Ogallala, Nebraska, reporting on us right up there where Gus left his 2 honeys right outside of town, and they sell cattle. They sell good cattle, and western Nebraska there, and that is a good sale and has been for a long time in Ogallala. We are now getting that market on Cattle Market Central, and those receipts are going into your real-time index and be streaming on our National Beef Wire screen if you have one of those near you. And I tell you guys, if you own a sale barn or you're in charge of one and you're not reporting your information, your data, into us for Cattle Market Central, you're really missing out, because we've got these market screens up in a lot of big procurement offices in a lot of places, and it's really good advertisement for your sale barn. And nobody promotes the auction way of selling cattle more than us here at DV Auction, Cattle Market Central, National Beef Wire, Feeder Flash, all that. We're all about selling cattle at auction. But look at this individual quote. Had lots of quotes come in on Thursday from Ogallala, but this individual one was the highest stalker type steers that I've seen all week. 77 head of them at 2:30 in the afternoon, weighed 607 at 197. Whew! That is almost $1,200 a head for a light 6-weight steer, but one that's got a lot of go to it, I'm sure. You look at St. Joe Stockyards, my old stomping grounds there. My buddy Whitney Davis from Savannah, Missouri, also known as Winston, he sold his cattle. A lot of times he puts them on a self-feeder and they tend to get fleshy, but this time he just kept them running out on what grass was left and some hay, and those cattle were really green, and he'll probably end up doing that again. He sold 112 head on Wednesday at St. Joe Stockyards. They weighed 652 pounds in a fairly thin condition at 180.60. That's getting up there almost $1,180 a head. And now I'm going to give you probably the fairest quote of the high end of your feeder steers anywhere. Winter Livestock in Dodge City, Kansas. And the practical high for an 8-weight steer, or a load of them, I think is real close to this. Most of them were bringing in the 130s, but a practical top would be 61 steers, weighed 825 pounds at 144.85. That's $1,195 a head, the same price as those stalker steers in Ogallala. But the bell ringer late in the week was again at St. Joe Stockyards. The bell cattle, I've seen them sell a jillion times down by Warrensburg there. Some brothers there, and they raise the best kind of cattle and give you the most fair way up in flesh condition you can imagine. And those cattle perform, and those buyers are looking for them and want to know every year when they sell. But they sell a lot of condition there and good black cattle, and got a lot of go to them. But 144 head of those bell steers weighed 807 at St. Joe Stockyards for $152.85. That's your feeder flash for Friday.